The Angry Chicken is a production of Amove TV. Bookmark amove.tv for more gaming and esports shows. The Angry Chicken is directly supported by listeners like you via patreon.com/TAC.
Hey everyone! Get in here! Ready for action! I've got the beast in my sight.
A podcast about Hearthstone, Heroes of Warcraft. This is The Angry Chicken.
Well, welcome back, everybody. This is The Angry Chicken. I'm Garrett Weinzerl. He's Willie Dills. And if you are watching the video version, you are noticing there is a black void where Jocelyn Moffat usually can be found. She is sadly sick today, so she will not be joining us. Dills, it's just going to be you and me duoing this thing.
You, me, and the chicken coop.
And
right?
the chicken coop, yeah. Exactly.
Well, there's plenty to talk about, and we've been doing this now for, the past month and a half, where every single show, we're going to like 2 hours because of how much there actually is to discuss.
Yeah.
Even if some people may think, and I saw this on our subreddit, they seem to be more defensive lately. It's like, well, no, maybe we're just, expressing our knowledge of the other side of some of the things we're saying, like as we're saying them more often. But even if it may seem like a lot of the same stuff is being discussed, it's actually new wrinkles in all the current things that are at the top of everyone's brain in Hearthstone, right? Mm-hmm. Each week, Ben Brode comes at us with some new stuff, and there's new things to talk about. And now we have a friggin' Frodan Twitter rant to talk about as well. So
damn right we do.
Lots of stuff.
Damn right we do. But yeah, I completely forgot about the Reddit thread on our subreddit. By the way, this is the Angry Chicken subreddit. And I will to that. Yeah, basically they were asking, hey guys, you guys seem a little defensive, and one of the comments in there from Cinderflame said, hey, if anything, it's likely a reaction to the tone of the conversation in Reddit and other various fora, not because of anything tag specific, more a desire to convey a bit of nuance. And I replied to this, all caps, this. Yeah. That's exactly the reason.
Basically what it is. Like, we understand, because we've been doing this for a while now. We understand when the tone of the conversation may come across as negative, and we just want to address that negativity as trying to be positive in a negative kind of maelstrom, right?
Yeah.
And that's really all it is. If it comes off defensive, whatever.
Yeah. And then there's other times too where I think we are overtly negative, and that's fine too. It's going to happen, right? I mean, we come in, week week out, and we talk about this game, whether it's changing in the ways the three of us would like or not. And right now, actually, you brought it up. There was a big Frodan rant on Twitter last week. I think it was like the day after we posted No, it was a couple days after. Sorry, it was on the 2nd. So it was 2 days after our last episode. So we haven't had a chance to really talk about this yet. And it all came out of many pro players' really kind of exhaustion and I would go as far to say anger or maybe disappointment with the way that
frustration.
Frustration
sure.
with the way
it's
that
the end of the month frustration that they all seem to feel at the same time.
Yeah, and basically this is in how HCT points are dished out in regards to your placement on the legend ladder.
Yeah. So like the actual what was really interesting too here is so some of the pros are coming out and complaining about some things, and then I think really Frodan kind of entered at the point where Amnesiac posted that he's almost caught up with the guy who got a 30-point head start, which I believe is Hot Meowth. I didn't actually look at that exact tweet, but that's basically where Frodan enters. And he's like, wait, how did he have a 30-point lead? And apparently he wasn't aware. But it's like holdover from last season. Certain tournaments end up giving you some points into the next season. It's kind of unclear exactly unless you read all the details of everything, exactly how all this works. So he enters there. Then he starts talking about some of the issues with the ladder system and how it's frustrating for pros to know what they should be doing to earn points. The last few hours of the season seem to have a bigger impact than the rest of the 29 or 30 days, right? And at that point, Ixar comes in and basically says basically asked the question, like, what do you think we should be doing? Like, do you have suggestions? He's kind of suggestion hunting, right? And Ixar is not technically part of like the esports team, so this isn't really like his job is not really to be the one figuring out how to dole out HCT points correctly.
But Dills, according to Reddit, everybody has every job at Team 5. Every single person, regardless
even the janitor
of their team,
right?
is responsible for every single aspect of the game.
Yeah. I mean, the good thing here, the great thing here, is that Ixar is communicating again, like coming out and saying, look, I hear you guys being frustrated. Give me some feedback that I can use. And I thought that was really great. I loved his kind of metered response to some of this stuff. And then Frodan just kind of goes, well, here's the issue. And he starts to come out with it all. And I really liked what he said. And it was funny. I watched this interview, and we'll link it in the show notes, that he did on Yahoo. There's a Yahoo Esports site, and they did an interview with him. And he echoed some of the stuff that I had said previously on the show, which I thought was interesting. I don't know if he like listens to our episodes or anything consistently, but he mentioned some of the stuff that I had said previously, and I think you guys had all echoed as well, that it feels like Team 5 doesn't want to make any big changes because they're afraid of blowing up the system or something. They're afraid of doing something that's incorrect and then messing up a good thing or something like that.
I think a good way to really kind of specify there is like system level changes, like new actual systems to the game, where like they're fine making a big change like that could be just about anything. I would say the Yogg change you could say was a big change, but I mean,
they changed the number of HCT points available through certain avenues and things like that. It's not like they're not doing anything. That's definitely not true.
Exactly.
But like these kind of sweeping changes that address ongoing issues, right? It feels like they don't want to do anything that might blow it up to a situation where they can't recover or something like that. That's what it kind of feels like. And he kind of said the same thing. And he said it in these tweets. He said, let's see if I can find it, where he says it. Well, so basically the issue he points out here is that the way you qualify for the Hearthstone World Championships is it doesn't reflect what the Hearthstone World Championships actually measures as far as your skill, right?
Yeah,
which ladder is not a tournament.
Yeah, again, we have said many, many times on the show. I mean, Frodan specifically points out, hey, bans are standard now, and there's no bans in ladder. I would go even further. Tournaments are not best of one. Like, you're not just going in blind.
Here's the other issue, too. So they changed, and this happened at the beginning of the year, but they changed the maximum number of points per month you can earn through Hearthstone Opens. And these are tournaments you can play from your house, right? And there was a lot of guys in the last few years who qualified by playing, just being like open grinders, right? Open tournament grinders. They would play a lot of these tournaments. They're tournament specialists, essentially. So the max you can earn now is 5 points by winning one open tournament in a month. You only get points from one Hearthstone Open tournament in each month, and it's your best result. So you could win 6 open tournaments in a month, and you only get the 5 points, right? And from ladder, if you finish number 1, you get 12 points now. So ladder is a bigger contributor each month than a tournament can ever be, right?
Right.
Except for these major tournaments, right? Now, the major tournaments, the problem with those is that, like, PAX South was a major tournament, right? So Frank in a Box, he won. He got his 15 HCT points, but not everybody has the luxury to be able to purchase tickets to a PAX South, get on a plane, get a hotel room, do all that. Not to mention, it's not really how Hearthstone is technically like meant to be played. Like the beauty of Hearthstone is the fact that you can play it from anywhere, right? You can play it from your house, play it from an iPad, on the bus. Like you can play it anywhere, right?
Every other Blizzard game that has an esport handles things.
Sure.
Like we're watching, like in Heroes Esports right now, these players are all over the world.
Yeah.
Like they're not all at a LAN venue for all of these. Those are just for the major tournaments, where the multi regions get together.
Like the quarterly tournaments that come together, and exactly. So you got this tournament at PAX South, which is a huge deal, but not everyone can get there, and it was pretty easy to notice. I was there. I was there live. It was pretty easy to notice that the guys who made like the top 16 were all like essentially sponsored pros or streamers or people who just had the funds and the ability and the means to actually show up at a place like this, right? So you had Trump, Amnesiac, you had Terrence, you had Frank in a Box, you had a bunch of these guys who there wasn't like all the top pros, but the pros who were like, it's close enough I can get to it without it being a huge expense. So, and a lot of the American pros and things like that. And then there was a bunch of like I heard from one of the players that his first round match, the guy he played against played 3 basic decks against him because it was just an open tournament, right? And it was free to enter, and it was a 128 player cap. And so once they had all the pros already signed up, and they were just like, okay, who else wants to play? And some guy walking by is like, all right. So, you have like a Hearthstone major where like the first round is just the pros beating up on like random dudes walking by PAX South. It was very weird. It was a super weird situation. But I mean, all that aside, it's really just that the way you qualify now is really weird and biased and not true to what Hearthstone tournament play kind of should be, I think, is what a lot of the pros feel, right?
Yeah.
They feel like, I want to sit at home and like there's a daily Hearthstone tournament in client I can click on, and if I do well in those throughout the course of a month, then I earn my way into this tournament. That's what I'm hearing a lot of them say. And we've talked about tournament mode for a long time on this show, so we won't get into that again. But
no,
that's the sentiment I'm hearing from them, is that it's confusing and it feels like it's not representative of the skill set that they actually are trying to develop, right?
Right.
Which is being a good tournament player.
And that, I think another interesting distinction to make is, we've asked for tournament mode on the show just because we want it, because we think it would be fun.
Mm-hmm.
We would like to have an analogous experience to what we watch in esports. When we sit down and we watch HCT, I've said it time and time again, the thing that is absolutely, I think, one of the coolest aspects about esports is when I go and watch Heroes Esports, I can go and play that exact same game the exact same way that they played it. When I watch StarCraft Esports, it's the same thing. I cannot do that in Hearthstone.
No.
Then
you log in and you're like, well, I would have banned a shaman, but here they are.
Yeah, exactly. I would like to come with 3 decks, have one of them banned, and then play a best of whatever.
Sure,
that would be fantastic.
And I've got my Dills Hearthstone League, and we do that, and it's very fun, and it's really scratched that itch for me. But not everybody has access to something like that.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
And the in-game client doesn't give access to something like that. And we had Daniel Negreanu on the show, who actually recently came on my stream to hang out, and he had brought up that exact same thing, right? And that was like one of the first times I'd heard it articulated in that way, which was just, I watch a tournament, I get excited, then I turn on Hearthstone, and I can't do that, right? I can't do what I just got excited about. So.
Yeah, exactly. There's no true competitive mode to play in the client. You have to go outside of it, and that's fine to a certain degree. I mean, we good God, Lord knows we invoke Magic the Gathering enough on this show, and it's for the most part a paper game. And if we want to have a competitive experience, we got to go to our local store, or we have to wait until one of the Grand Prix or a Star City Games thing comes through town.
It's true. I mean, look, no game is going to be perfect in this situation, but right now Hearthstone feels far from perfect. I think Kibler did pop into this thread at some point too, and mentioned that at least in Magic, like everybody knows, what they need to do to qualify for the Pro Tour and what they need to do to qualify for the World Championships, and there's like nothing up in the air at all. There's no weird other thing that you could do, and then you've got some people qualified through like a street game, and some people qualified by actually showing up to a Grand Prix. Like it's all very cut and dry, and everybody understands what's going on. Right now, the Hearthstone pros feel like they're not 100% sure what they should be doing with their time, and that's your money, that's your income. Making it to the World Championships is a big boon for these guys, right? It's like once you get there, suddenly your cachet has grown. If you're a streamer, suddenly your stream will be hit like Firebat's name was made, right, by getting to the World Championships and winning it. These guys all are kind of competing for that, and they're not 100% sure how to go about it, right? So
no, I agree.
Frustration, basically.
And so there's many sides to this, right? There's a lot of different ways they could go. I think what we would like to see eventually is a tournament mode, and I would file that under long-term goals. But there's, I think, short-term goals as well, and those are being discussed. I mean, we'll have a link to this Twitter thread with Rodin that we talked about in there, and also specifically on Rat's thread, because Rat got in there and started talking a lot about things. I mean, one of the things that I've been seeing thrown around a lot is that make make the point value, stop making it a moving target, make it like there's a set point value. Everyone understands what that is and to shoot for. Frodan's brought up many times that there should be transparent rankings.
Yeah, you should be able to like log in and see them daily, right? And see where you are and what's going on,
that
and
would
understand
help.
what you need to do that day. So,
Yeah, I would file that under short-term solutions as well. And on the flip side, I think it is worth mentioning, that yes, I personally would prefer tournament mode. I would prefer HCT points to be doled out under scenarios of gameplay that are actually similar to the competition itself. But there is something very cool about you being able to qualify for professional Hearthstone play through the client in a way that is, at least I think to the general public, easily understandable, as long as you don't dive too deep, right? Like if you actually pull up the HCT rules and the way that the points work, it is mind-boggling. But
it's a really big document.
Yeah, exactly. But what is cool is that it's this. We have a professional game that can be played on your damn phone, and you can qualify for hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars tournaments through just playing it on your darn phone. That's really cool. I don't think that should be lost, but I do think it should be made more analogous to the actual competition.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing too that's kind of weird, and this is just like a side bit. This isn't necessarily. I just want to point out kind of a symptom of this current system is that I think it really does. It trickles down to the ladder in general, right? Because a lot of the things that shape the meta come from the top and move down through everybody else, right? And we get really frustrated because of the sheer amount of shaman. And one of the reasons why that occurs is the guys who are trying their best to earn their way into the Hearthstone World Championship are only going to be playing the best deck when it comes to ladder, because you cannot ban shaman. And that's not where their testing ground is, right? That's literally where they're there to earn HCT points. When they play shaman, because they consider it the best deck and has faster games, which allows them to play more games within the amount of time they have, when they do that, it does trickle down. And so everybody else starts to kind of feel that effect of trends start to happen. People start to follow what the pros are doing. Next thing you know, at rank 17, it's like a perfect aggro shaman deck you're playing against. And that's the frustration too. So the taking away of ladder as an important piece of earning your way into a tournament, right, would actually, I think, have a positive effect on the ladder experience, which is kind of the experience for everybody else, right? You don't necessarily equate ladder on like Heroes of the Storm with tournament meta, right? But a lot of the times, the tournament decks that you see like are like basically exact copies of these, like, but then you just see them spammed on ladder. So it's it's interesting how the things affect each other in a way that's, I think, unhealthy. So you know, again, Ixtar was asking questions, man. They're aware. They understand. I like you're breaking it down into short-term goals and long-term goals, because I think that's the best way to attack it. What can we do now to make it better? And then let's talk about 2018 as far as truly fixing things.
Yeah, really revamping, because that's the thing. We're already here. It's 2017. The season has begun. I don't think we're going to see a radical change in the middle of a Hearthstone esports season.
And we shouldn't, to be honest.
No.
But
No.
anyway, that's just a quick breakdown of the whole thing. There's a lot more you could go into if you really want to know about it. Check out Frodan's Twitter feed. There's a lot of people responding there. It's just at Frodan, I believe. And then I'll actually link. Let me link in our show notes too. This is the entire document that explains the HCT rules. I'll link it right below the Frodan interview in the show notes. So if you guys really want to see it, you can check that out.
Yep. Well, awesome. Definitely go check that out, everyone. It'll be in the show notes again. And every now and then I feel the need to remind folks, you can go to amove.tv. If you go to /TAC, that'll bring up the Angry Chicken specific little listing. And whenever you're looking for show notes, just click on the episode you want the show notes from, and they're always linked at the bottom. There'll be like 4 links in a bullet list. Click on the show notes one. And it doesn't always work on mobile. So especially if you have the Drive app installed, it seems to cause a lot of problems. So try it in a browser. Anyways, there's quite a bit of Hearthstone news to discuss this week, so let's get into it.
Good news, everyone!
And news this week is brought to you by our sponsor, .game domains, which you can get just about anywhere domain names are sold, or you can just go to get.game. Right now, you can do it. It's a relatively new domain. It launched in May of last year. The best names are still available. They are on the more expensive side, and that is on purpose. It is a premium domain name. If you are developing a game, you know probably, I would assume, what your name is going to be called, and chances are that .game domain is there. It is waiting for you. It is more expensive than a standard domain name, but that's the thing we were joking about last time, Dills. People don't just go and buy it and squat on it. It deters squatters.
Sure. Yeah, it's all. I mean, I don't know about you, but my last company, we went through a name change, and the hugest part of the name change was, is the domain available? Which was so dumb because we came up with all these great ideas. And then we were like, well, no, we can't name our company that because some guy owns it and he wants $100,000 for the domain.
It's ridiculous.
So, yeah, .game, that's a way to get around that.
Yeah, and when it's $10 to get a domain, it's very easy. Like, why not? Maybe this will be something one day. I'll sit on it and see if, Lucasfilm gives me 6 figures for whatever this domain is. The same thing with, Blizzard Entertainment Games and everything else. So go check it out. Again, it is get.game. If you are working in the games industry and need a domain that is not being squatted on, go check it out. Get.game. Now, Ben Brode, once again, just laying it on thick with the information. He got on the official forums this past week and talked about balanced, talked about design. He broke down terminology again. I actually really like it when he does this. Some of my friends are like, dude, it's like reading a dictionary. It's like, well, no, I find it very interesting to see how members of Team 5 parse terms like the meta, like balance. I find that kind of mad interesting, actually. So, anyway, in this post, and I honestly could not surmise it better than Hearthpwn did. So thanks to Hearthpwn for the shorter points I'm about to read to you. I recommend you go read the thing in full. But apparently in the past 2 weeks, 30% of players were playing Shaman on the Legend ladder. In the mad dash to finish the first season of 2017, there was a lot of Shaman going on.
Yeah, there was. And that's... like, that doesn't sound crazy, right? It's like 30%. Oh, that's not that bad. But there's 9 classes.
Yes.
So you should be seeing every class somewhere around 11 to 15, like 8 to 15% in a perfect world.
Right? Yeah.
So when I kind of look at this number and I think, well, that's twice what it should be, right? Even like an overrepresented class, I feel like should still be somewhere like even 20%. I'd be like, that's okay. That's an overrepresented class. But when you hit 30%, I think we can qualify that as an issue, right?
Yeah.
To me, anyway. They may not, feel the same way. But.
Yeah. Some other interesting factoids that came out of that was if they open that statistic up to all ranks, it dropped to 17%. But that's still a relatively high figure.
That makes a lot of sense, though. If you open it up to all ranks, you're opening it up to guys who, people who. I would assume when you open it up to all ranks, basically the number of mages goes way up, right? Because a lot of people just... I recently taught a guy to play, and I was like, all right, well, here's what you want to do when you're starting off. Pick a class, and let's just go with that, and we'll try to make you, like, a deck with that. And he was like, all right, sweet, I picked mage. And I was like, yeah, of course you do. Because that's, I think, what everybody does, right? It's a class they play through the tutorial, and they feel like, all right, I get it. So I would assume that's kind of what happens. And also, of course, down at the bottom, people who just don't have all the cards to play Shaman, so they're playing whatever they have cards for. So yeah. I consider that when they break it down to all ranks, like that's slightly less important. I think, again, I want to slice the top to find out what the real balance issues are.
Yeah, and back to that 30% of Shaman being played on the Legend ladder. Apparently, the worst point in the history of Hearthstone balance-wise was Undertaker Hunter, where it was played by 35% of players across all ranks. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know that, we remember it. We were here for that time, and it was worse than now. It definitely was. And not to mention, I think one of the biggest things there is that Undertaker Hunter. Almost everything in that deck was commons, and
it was extremely
maybe a few rares. At least with these Shaman, they got a few rares in there mixed in, and. Things like Aya, Blackpaw, and stuff like that not everybody has access to. So
yeah, it was extremely
it was cheap,
affordable. It was affordable,
powerful.
Yeah. That was, I think, the time I put my head down harder as a stupid hipster more than anything. I was like, no, I refuse. I refuse to play Undertaker Hunter. You're all a bunch of jerks. This is broken. I'll play Undertaker Priest.
I know, that's what I did too. I played a lot Undertaker Priest, man.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
so much more fun, though.
Well, I remember we were both pretty sad when the nerf came down. We're like, well, A, thank God Undertaker Hunter's going away. But B, what about my Undertaker Priest? And that kind of
Yeah.
started the dry spell of priests, as a matter of fact.
You know, this is the thing, though. I've heard a lot of people talk about this recently, that one of the ways to just fix pirates is that you make these kind of OP cards class cards, because the problem really is that these OP cards are neutrals, right? So then they end up finding their way into, because like you could say, okay, Shaman's at 30%, that's a lot, but then we're about to get down to this next stat. Pirates is 50%, right? Just pirates
Yes,
alone.
they're calling it the Pirate Package. This is Small Time Buccaneer and Patches the Pirate. Those are the only two things that they've noted is under this package is being played in roughly 50% of decks above rank 5.
Well, it depends on. Okay, so basically, the Pirate Package is those 3 cards specifically, but each class that uses it adds 2 more pirates most of the time, right?
Usually,
so
yes.
Rogue adds the 1/1 that draws a card. Swashbuckler.
And South Sea Deckhand.
The Shaman adds the South Sea Deckhand. Yep. And then the Warrior puts in the N'Zoth First Mate, right? So they all kind of add, and I think they also do the South Sea Deckhand too, just because why wouldn't you put in a 2/1 charger? But it depends. You could kind of finagle there a little bit, but you end up with 4 1-drop pirates and patches in pretty much all that. So those 3 are the most important, and then you kind of. But if you were to look across all classes, you would look at those 3 in particular, and that would be the package that would define it, right?
Yeah.
So that being in 50% of decks above rank 5, that's a problem. That's definitely a problem.
I agree entirely.
The suggestion I heard that was kind of nice was to put Small Time Buccaneer as just a rogue card, right?
Yeah,
and then,
chat room's mentioning it right now. Dano playing in the chat, and I've heard that thrown around in our inbox on Twitter.
Sure.
Random messages to me in game, whether I'm playing Hearthstone or not. People down the street just yell, "Small Time Buck Rogue," and I'm just like, "Oh,
yeah,
you sir,
Because it's
we're
actually-
friends."
It's really nice for Miracle Rogue to have a little bit of a quick start, because then they don't also then continue doing stuff on turn 3 and 4 that's like that insane. The Warriors were good before the Buccaneer, right? The Pirate Warrior was good before the new set was released.
Not this good.
They would
though.
still be good.
Not this good.
Right?
Not this good.
No, not this good. But they were still good. I mean, the Bloodsail Cultist, like all of these cards, these are still very strong cards. I think they'd be more of a mid-range deck, right?
Yeah. But how long before we were all just complaining about Rogue and Rogue only? Because it's already up there.
I don't think that would necessarily happen, because I think you'd still have enough fast decks, and I think that some other things like Egg Druid and Token Druid and really fast Druids would come back. Because right now they want to be there, they're close, but they can't quite. They're not as fast as the Pirates, right? So it holds them back just a touch. Whereas Rogue is still not technically an aggro deck; it's still basically a combo deck, right?
Right.
So, yeah, I think you make those other aggro decks slightly weaker, and the other aggro possibilities come forward, right? You might see stuff like Murloc Shaman, which I think they kind of wanted to see. We got calling the finishers and stuff like that. Instead of the Pirates, it'd go back to like mid-range Shaman with a slower start. I don't know. I think it would be interesting. I don't know if that's the perfect fix, but I think it's definitely one that should be contemplated.
Yeah. No, I'm there with you. I could get behind that to a certain degree. I would be a little concerned that Rogue would just be, and it's a new tier 1, and it will be until something drastic happens.
Sure. It's definitely a possibility. Yeah.
Yeah.
But right now, it's like Rogue is still, I think, like Rogue wants to burst through as a top tier deck, and it has been labeled top, tier 1 by Tempo Storm and stuff. But it still gets decimated by pure aggro, right? It's like you draw, Auctioneer, and they're just drawing like, friggin' Arcanite Reaper. And they're like, yeah, sweet. Good job with that Auctioneer. I'm bashing your face in. So it's like that maybe does put them too high. So it is possible, but I don't know. Like right now, it just feels like the Pirates are just oppressing more than anything the other aggro possibilities. And that's super sad to me.
No, I agree with you. I mean, you were messaging me apparently on stream because I was getting other messages last night like, oh, you're talking with Dills on stream.
Yeah.
I had just a horrible bout of just could not fall asleep last night. Couldn't turn my brain off. But I was sleepy enough that piloting a rogue was just fool's errand. So I was like, F it. I'm just going to be that dude. And I just chained Aggro Shaman games. And I think I lost 2 out of like 12. It was ridiculous. It's damn it. That deck is just ridiculous. It's so easy to win.
Sure. I mean, I was playing on Wild. I was playing Pirate Burgle Rogue because I wanted to play a fun deck. But I realized very quickly that fun was not going to be had without pirates. Like the only way I could get to my fun cards was to keep up with the pirate openers that my opponents were playing. Yeah. So I was like, all right, well, at least I'm burgling. So at least I'm doing something kind of fun. And it's part of the pirate package. They have swashburglers and stuff, right? So it was interesting. But that's the other issue is I feel like my fun is being oppressed, right? Like I want to do something super fun. And even like running double Doomsayer doesn't allow me to get to like late game stuff. So it's all gotten a little weird. The Pirates just feels like you just kind of have to do it. You just kind of have to.
To a certain degree, yeah. I mean, Benbro did bring up and they said, hey, Control Warrior is really good against Shaman. Like really good. And he's right. But you know what we talked about Control Warrior was the last episode? No, 2 episodes ago.
2 episodes ago,
2 episodes ago. And it's so much effort. It's so much more effort for...
And you lose to, like, anytime you queue into the control decks, it's just not as good against them anymore. It's basically like a one-trick pony now.
Yeah, and this is all based on what your goal is, right? Like, what your goal as a player is. If you want to be unique, if you are like how I usually am, and I'm like, no, I'm not playing the super easy, fast aggro deck that everyone's playing and getting fantastic results with, because that's just not the type of player I typically am. Then I'm not saying don't go and play controller. I'm not saying that the game is bad because of that, because a lot of it comes down to your personal preference. But if your goal is to just rank up fast, get gold, get ranks, get legend, it seems like you're just doing yourself a disservice by playing a deck like Control Warrior that just takes so much more effort.
Sure. And I think, it's important to note that the statistics can be used to justify the current meta. It's what it feels like they're kind of doing is they're like, guys, here's the actual numbers. It's not that bad. That's great.
I disagree with that because I think at the end of this, he says,
sure,
an announcement about balance changes are going to be made in about a week or so.
Sure.
He tried to make it sound...
a week or so before they're saying a patch will come at the end of the month, but they didn't specify that patch will include balance changes. They said an announcement about them will happen first, so that's what we'll hear if balance changes will be made and what they will be.
There's still an if in there, but everything they've said, I'm reading into it as, yes, we're considering it an issue, and I think the only reason they're giving us these numbers is so that I think it helps explain why there hasn't been a change already. Knowing about how it has to be a patch, they can't just do a live update. That's part of the issue. He goes deep into what the meta means to Team 5, and that's why you should go. I think everyone should go and read this because he explains, I think, rather eloquently why they like to sit and wait, why they like to see the players kind of figure it out for themselves. It's something we hear them say all the time, but this is the first time I think Ben Brode's really gone into deep detail about what he meant in that. So that's what I see. What I see is they do think this is an issue to a certain degree, but not egregious enough where they need to like hit the alarm and do something right this second.
Sure, but what I don't like though is like I'm just saying, like, these numbers feel to me like they're kind of like talking us down off a ledge a little bit. Like, you guys are making too much of it. It's actually not as bad as you think it is, although it may still be bad, right? Like, it may not be ideal, but it's not as bad as you are making it out to be. That's what I take from like the overall gist of it, right? But then like what bothers me is things like, hey, well, just play Control Warrior. That does really well. Like, I don't want to be backed into playing Control Warrior because that's what I have to do to respond to Shaman. And then the other side to it is whether or not the number, like the win rate for Aggro Shaman is 53%, which is not that crazy. Whether or not that's true, each individual game, and I talked about this on my stream last night, where I had a game where I played the same guy twice in a row in Wild, right? And the first game, he stomped me in like 5 turns because I drew patches, and he played Buccaneer on turn 1 and got patches, right? And then it was just like an absolute stomping. And then the second game, I didn't draw patches, and I played a Buccaneer on turn 1, and I stomped him. And so basically, like what my point there was is like, if you're like, I'm dug in, and I said this on stream last night too. I'm dug in. I'm here to play Hearthstone. I'm in it for the long haul. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not the player that Blizzard needs to worry about losing. I'm playing Hearthstone, and maybe I'll be frustrated and I'll play fun decks and I'll change up how I play or whatever. But I'm dug in, right? Now, another player though who's not 100% convinced that Hearthstone is going to be a game they're going to play for a long time might have that same experience where they draw the patches and the other guy plays Buccaneer, and then the next game they don't draw patches, they play a Buccaneer and they win, and they may go, this game is stupid, right? And then they just leave. So I think that's the issue, is that, you know, while you may not lose every player, you're going to lose some people when this experience feels like the game was decided on turn 1. And I think that's even a bigger deal than balance, is that feeling.
It's a perception.
The game was over on turn 1.
And
right?
and in Team 5's, I think, defense, Ben Brode said that pretty much that exact thing before, that perception of balance is important to them.
Absolutely it is, yeah. Like the you need to feel like, because they talk a lot about these small victories, right? It felt in that, like they were like, and sometimes they bring up, oh, I killed some of your minions, but those don't feel like small victories when you kill a minion and still get bashed in the face for like 6 the next turn, right? It's like the small victory needs to feel like you turn the tide a bit, and then they turn the tide back, and then you turn the tide. Like, those are actual small victories. Even if in the end you lose the game, you felt like you'd made decisions that mattered, right? But right now, the way Pirates work, the decision that mattered was, oh, I decided not to draw patches on turn 1, right? And like that doesn't feel good. So, you know, whether or not patches is a balanced card is kind of besides the point. When you draw him and feel like that's what lost you the game, then it feels like you didn't have a chance to get those small victories. So,
right.
I feel like that's probably the kind of stuff that we're going to see addressed in this balance patch. And, you know, and it may feel like the end of this month is a long ways away. This is a short month, guys. We're getting there soon. It's only 3 weeks away.
Yeah. Yeah, which just means I have anxiety because I have a mortgage payment now. I'm like, damn it, that's coming up even sooner. But, yeah. No, I agree. But, again, I implore everyone, go out and read this in full. There's some really good insight into game design in this post by Ben Brode, so go read it.
And there are ways to combat pirates that aren't play pirates yourself. This is very true. We're going to talk about a deck later in the show that does have a fairly decent matchup.
That's a very good point. Yeah. I know. I realized I just spent a few minutes saying that. I just last night was like, screw it, I'm joining them. I'm gonna be a jerk. But we're gonna pull up out of this you know, just play aggro shaman nosedive. I promise. We're gonna talk about a different way to play shaman, a very, very different way to play shaman. Yep. Here in just a few minutes, but not before we talk about Ixar saying more things about Arena, and then I promise, I'm sure there's some people out there like listening or like, why aren't they talking about the rumor? We're getting to that. It's not technically news, so we're saving it for the end of the newsreel. Anyway, Ixar talked more about Arena just today. Actually, I think just a couple hours before the show. So I'm still digesting this in real time. He was basically asked on Reddit if the team has considered increasing the chance that spells are offered in Arena, and he replied and said, right now we're testing at about a 20% increase. So this is a 20% increase of finding spells in your Arena draft. He said that we think having spells occur more often and the card pool being standard is a good idea. But the thing we fight a bit is that when you have a smaller card pool and increase the rate of any set of cards, those cards appear quite frequently. He continued, I'm fairly certain it's not a good idea for every mage deck to have 4 volcanic potions or every shaman deck to have 5 jade lightnings. I would agree with you, Dean. But it might be a good idea to increase the rate at which you get spells or the most recent set. In any case, we have a number of changes in tests now and hope to announce the final changes in the nearish future.
I think you hit the nail on the head that this is the issue that you would face if you do this. I'm kind of hoping that they move a little slower on this. Like I would kind of like to see Arena just go standard first and then just have even picks for everything and just see how that feels, and then start making changes. But I know they're internally testing, so I'm sure they're aware that this kind of works okay. But if you have the 20% increase in spells and then you tack on the increase in the most recent set, then you end up with, like when a new card gets released that's really powerful, suddenly that card kind of takes over the meta. So maybe what you do is, now that you're going to a standard card pool, you just stop increasing the newest set, because by default you're kind of increasing the newest set anyway, right? It's now making up a bigger percentage of the card pool because you're losing a lot of other stuff. So, I like the fact that they're toying with stuff. I think it's great. This does worry me a little bit because I don't want to see, like a card like Jade Lightning
Any
take
mage
over
spell.
the meta, right? Yeah.
Any mage
Firelands
spell.
Portal, all that kind of stuff, right? When
Yeah.
it takes over the meta, it's negative for the game. So moving to standard, I love. I don't know how much I love 20% increase in spells if you have it along with increase in recent set. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
If we saw more frequent updates from Team 5, I would be all on board for something like this, because in Heroes of the Storm, we would point to that and say that is a dial. That's something that they can turn up and down really easily. We don't see that in Hearthstone. We don't see them make changes frequent enough.
Where you could say, like, well, if they try 20, then maybe they dial it down to 15 and they see how that works and blah blah blah.
Yeah, we get weekly updates in Heroes. If we had that in Hearthstone, I'd say just do it. Just give us standard and a 20% spell increase next week. Let's see how it goes. Collect your data. If it's a little weird, dial it back. Maybe nix it entirely.
It's one of those things that there's a lot of things where we've talked about the frequency of changes, and it doesn't get brought up very often. But one of the issues that might be causing it to be slower, the cycles to be slower in Hearthstone, is the fact that they have multiple platforms, right? So you have to put out updates and patches on iOS and Google Play Store. And so, those have to be submitted and approved before they go live, and then it's a whole thing. So
Yeah, which is why
it does slow down the cycle.
When I see all of the, when I look at the Overwatch team, I get so depressed about Hearthstone. It's like, they're so different. They're so
game.
freaking different. It's not. Overwatch doesn't even have to worry about Mac anymore. They are literally the most focused Blizzard team in terms of where they are putting their game out.
Not to mention the fact that it's like kind of just different with the Xbox and PC versions, right? Like you don't even have to tune them the same.
Yeah,
because
they
the
tune
game plays so differently.
They tune them separately, which is what I would like to see, at least from a systems level in Hearthstone. There's no point to having a different balance from mobile to PC, but having deeper systems on the PC and iPad version versus phones, I would love personally. Bring it. Let's do it. Anyways, finally, let's do it. We got some rumor. We got some scuttlebutt. We got some
maybe news.
Big maybe news to talk about. I like that. Leaked Hearthstone expansion is the big talk right now. This came about because a voice actress by the name of Lonnie Minella, who has done a ton of work with Blizzard and just games in general, has a personal resume on her website. An astute Redditor from the Play Hearthstone Reddit, I guess, for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe they were in need of a voice actress to hire.
It's the internet, man. People just scour it.
Went and looked at her resume and saw that on her resume there was a credit for Hearthstone Lost Secrets of Un'Goro on there. Un'Goro, of course, being a very famous zone from World of Warcraft, dating all the way back to Vanilla. This, for me personally, has an extremely nostalgic tie to Vanilla, because I went there looking for that Zelda quest line so I could get my boomerang trinket.
Find Link.
Yeah, find Lincoln.
Get the boomerang.
Lincoln, sir. Lincoln.
Lincoln.
Yeah, not to be confused with the president. But,
sure.
or the car that Matthew McConaughey likes to shill. But, so... this is one of those things where, of course, this could be true, and of course, this could be nothing.
Sure. I mean, it could be a troll type of thing, but I don't think so. It's their actual website. I don't know. It feels fairly true to me. Feels correct. There's other things that have been discovered since, like there's been website registries and all that kind of stuff. So it feels like this is probably the next expansion. There's a lot that you can do with Un'Goro, because Jocelyn definitely wanted us to point out that Un'Goro, if you look at its lore, its history, They consider it to be the area that the Titans used as their petri dish, right? When they were creating Azeroth, when they were shaping Azeroth. And this is kind of why there are like dinosaurs and weird slimes.
Yeah,
and
why it's so
all this
green.
weird stuff, right?
For example, yeah, it ties in with Freya, the Titans, and the Keepers a ton. Which if Jocelyn was here, that's what she would be screaming at the top of her lungs, because all anyone has been talking about are dinosaurs. And yes, that's very much a thing in Un'Goro Crater, but also Freya, the Titans, and the Keepers. Those are also huge themes to Un'Goro Crater.
Yeah, they can. I mean, this is essentially, think about it like the Titans when they were creating Azeroth and shaping. Well, the Titans essentially are planets, but they all kind of also then all work together, right?
Well,
when they were doing it, when they're shaping what Azeroth would be, they were like using Un'Goro Crater as a place to like test creatures, right? Well, let's make this creature and this weird creature, and that's why you get like dinosaurs make a lot of sense in that kind of environment. It's almost like Jurassic Park, right?
Yeah.
Like we've created the dinosaurs again, and so it's really interesting, and there's a lot they can do with it. They can create a lot of characters. There's also, like you said, like maybe we'll see Lincoln. I don't know. That'd be kind of cool.
I hope we do, because that quest line
throwback.
Quest line has been removed from the game. I would love to see a little nod to it in Hearthstone.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's tons of like NPCs that people might remember. There was the dude that was like passed out on the rock that you had to go find, and then you would do like a quest to bring him back somewhere. I don't know. There's all sorts of cool stuff you could do. So I mostly remember it because it felt like forever in there, leveling from like 45 to 50 or something like that. It seems like it took forever.
Yep.
And also running around mining thorium, because the outer edge, you could just go crazy with the thorium in there.
I distinctly remember being snuck up on by a massive oversized Tyrannosaurus Rex, which I still don't think makes any sense, and being killed almost instantly.
Sure.
But
yeah, that's as a hunter, I went there to go get my Devil Sword. That was very important to me. Oh yeah, Marshall's Stand. That was the other thing. Okay, I'm just looking it up. Marshall's Stand and Willett and Marshall. That was that little place up in the north or whatever that would it was like where they were all positioned and stationed, and then there's lots of cool stuff in here. So
there's also a Congo themed quest line, like the Michael Crichton book Congo, where you had to go rescue the half bionic gorilla from the cave.
Yeah, it's like the gorilla just in the cave with the other gorillas, and then you go in there and get it. Yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff in here. So this is there's plenty to work with if this is true. I could see this being pretty awesome. Yep. So I'm all for it, man.
Bring it. Yeah, if this is going to be the setting for the next expansion, I'm all for it as well. And really, Dills, I just realized when you play Lincoln, he could yell, "It's dangerous to go it alone," or "dangerous to go alone." Sorry. And when he dies, he could say, "It's a secret to everybody." So, there you go. Cool. Well, shall we move on and talk about a much different type of shaman?
Let's do it.
Alrighty.
Hit it very hard.
Wanna blow something up? Time to pay!
And the strategy segment this week is brought to you by, and this entire episode and every episode ever, our patrons over at patreon.com/TAC. Thank you this week to Carl Drogo. I don't think that's your real name. Daniel L., Ryan S., Jordan W., Mark S., Zoltan W., and Bob S. Lots of S last names this week, and no last names given. But I'm keeping my eye on you, Carl Drogo. I don't think that's what your mama named you. I don't think so. But anyways, we are here today to talk about Jade Shaman. Dills, you've been so excited to talk about this deck.
Yeah, I mean, not necessarily because I love this deck, but because when you queue into a shaman, you do not expect this, right? So it's just nice to know that there's like legit ways to play this oppressive class that don't feel like cancer, right? So the other thing too is we talked a lot about the cards when they were announced, and one of the cards that was kind of interesting was this card Devolve, and for a long time it didn't quite find its footing, right?
Nope.
But that being said, if you're going up against enough things like rogues that are concealing things, shamans that are just spamming the board, stickier minions, things like that, Devolve actually has a pretty sweet place that it can do a lot of things. You have to back it up is the key. So you can't just like run Devolve and hope and like be like, that took care of the problem, right? I devolved. you also then have to do something like Maelstrom Portal or Lightning Storm or Elemental Destruction past it, but it really does help you deal with boards that you would not have had the tools to deal with in the past, right?
Yeah. So I played a few games of this, not a ton. I'll be
Sure.
honest. I've been playing Demon Warlock Zoo. That was my I'm sick
Whoa.
of the meta
Nice.
deck, and then I've just been embracing the meta and playing Aggro Shaman to great success.
Sure.
But so I played a few games of this, and it's so insanely different from any type of shaman, because pretty much every other shaman right now, there's a good chance it's running pirates, and if it's not running pirates, it's definitely running your opener of Tunnel Trog, your Golem, and probably Spirit Claws. Neither of these two deck lists that we're going to talk about today, the two variants of this Jade Shaman, are doing that. The one that we pulled off of Hearthstone that hit #1 legend in EU does have Spirit Claws, but AP Drops does not. So AP Drops is like the most different it could possibly be.
Sure. So I mean, we'll talk first about the Hearthstone Jade Shaman deck, which did happen to hit rank 1. So one of the big things is you still are defining your meta slightly big, like on pirates, right? That still matters. So the Spirit Claws is a really nice tool to be able to. You won't be able to clean up the Buccaneer, but you could clean up the patches, and then that slows down some of the damage incoming. And then you can, roll spell power or play a Blood Mage and then clean up the Buccaneer the next turn. And it just helps you have something to fight back with in the early game. But you'll notice the difference here between, like, this one I feel like is a little more linear. This deck is more about kind of playing minions along with the opponent on curve. And you're using your Jades to kind of fight back until eventually you've cleared their board a few times, and your Jades are now coming out as 5/5s and 6/6s, and they just kind of take over the game, right? Mm-hmm. And you stall using Lightning Storms, you stall using Healing Waves, Jinyu Water Speakers, you stall with Maelstrom Portals. Like you just get a few clears in there, and then it allows you to get to the point where your Jades become too much for the opponent to deal with, no matter how aggressive they can be. So you still run into the issue that I found against Aggro Shaman of them sometimes being able to just burst you with Lava Burst and Jade Lightning over the top of whatever minions you've got down, right? But the fact that you have minions down does help you just kind of fight back. It's, your minions start off fairly weak, but they're still tools that, along with your Spirit Claws, along with your Jade Claws, along with Maelstrom Portals, allow you to finish off the opponent's board, right? So this one plays a little bit more linearly. It's like each turn you're kind of playing a minion. AP Drops version is a lot more built around toteming a lot, doing not a lot of things, and then getting one giant Elemental Destruction turn or Lightning Storm turn or something like that and just flipping the board. And then at that point, your Jades are just too much for the opponent to deal with, right? So it plays a lot more patiently. And that is a tougher play style for people to learn and wrap their head around. So, if that's... Like, I wanted to put these two versions up because their core is pretty similar, right? The core is still the Jade cards, things like Jinyu Water Speakers and the Healing Waves and the a few of the board clears. AP Drops just throws in like the Elemental Destruction, the Lava Shock, and these kind of larger board flips, right? So it just kind of depends on what you prefer. Now, if I play the other version, the Hearthstone Jade Shaman version, I toyed with a few different things. One of them was I toyed with going to one Devolve, because I did find that whenever I drew both Devolves, they were tough to use, right? There's many board states where they didn't do anything.
There's very specific decks where that would come in handy, right? Where you would want to evolve like 2 turns in a row. I had that problem in one of my games too, where I was sitting there with both Devolves in my hand. I'm just like, what the hell do I do with this?
When do I use these? When is it actually good? The other thing too is Devolves are a lot better against 3 and 2 drops, but when the game gets to the point where they're like 5s and 6s and you devolve, it doesn't always work out for you very well. So
no, there's a lot of really wacky stuff that can happen. Granted, I'm always happy to devolve a Sylvanas.
Sure,
that feels real good.
Yeah, I mean, it acts as another hex essentially in certain situations too. So against control decks, it's nice to be able to devolve You know, like let's say a Ragnaros can't be dealt with. If I devolve it, oftentimes their 7-drop I could kill with maybe a Jade Lightning or something like that, right? So it still has use, but I found that it's most useful when, say, you end up with a board with like a few totems, a Flame Tongue, and some Feral Spirits or something, right? And I devolve that, and then I can Maelstrom the whole thing down, right?
Yep.
That is when it felt to me like the most useful and the most impact I was able to get, where suddenly it almost acted like spell power, right? Where a lot of times you're wishing you could roll for spell power 100% of the time. Devolve almost acts as another way to get spell power.
Yeah,
so,
there's always outliers, right? But
Sure.
it's those situations where if you're finding yourself saying, I wish these minions were any other minions than they are now. I mean, that's when you're casting Devolve, and for the many reasons you said, like either you're using it as an extra hex or to just get a little more ceiling, a little more reach out of your AOE.
And Midnight Bomber in chat just brought up I mentioned it earlier, but the conceal with rogues is one of the biggest things that's so hard to play against, right? When they get a giant Edwin and an auctioneer and a quest thing and all that stuff, and they're all on the board at the same time, and they're concealed, there's like nothing you can do against it. Devolve is like the perfect answer because Edwin turns into a 2-drop, quest things turn into 2-drops. You know, those are suddenly and they're not concealed anymore. And auctioneers turn into 5-drops, which still kind of sucks, but at least they're not drawing them a million cards on the next turn, right? So
when Small Time Buccaneer becomes a rogue only card and rogue reigns supreme and we enter that dark feature, this is the deck I'm running.
This will be real good then. Yeah, absolutely. And then of course, like against control decks, you tend to do pretty well just because of the fact that Jade as a mechanic does really well against control. So
yeah, this plays
really
very
the decks
control-like.
are tuned to fight back against aggro, and then the Jade mechanic on its own allows you to beat control.
Yeah, and you're a shaman. You're a shaman that has hex in it. I feel like I need to quantify that because for a while now we haven't really been thinking about hex and shaman. But back in my day, that was a big deal.
Hex was a really good card.
Yeah. So you can absolutely go the distance because of cards like Hex, because of the ridiculous amount of healing through cards like Genie Water Speaker and Healing Wave.
Yeah.
This has legs on it. This is the road trip shaman, is what I would like to call it, because it can go.
Yeah, you
long.
end up getting 8/8s and 9/9s and 10/10s, especially because you have the brand and stuff, so you can eventually. Oh, and the other key thing I want to point out to some people may not know this, Bran and Jade Claws works. Jade Claws is a battle cry, so you do get double Jades off of that. So
yeah.
If you just get one double battle cry with any Jade card in this deck, it's going to do wonders for you. So the other.
I got it off on that sounded terrible. I got that I got that combination to occur with a Jade Chieftain earlier, and it just sealed the deal. It was over. It was like, you know what's worse than
6/6 taunt?
Yeah, you know what's worse than one big minion with taunt? 2 big minions with taunt, plus the Jade Chieftain itself.
Yep, exactly. That card is so disgusting when you can brand. So the last thing I want to point out is like some tech choices that can be made. Like we said, that the double devolve sometimes felt a little clunky. I did try going down to 1 devolve, and I tried running a single Bloodlust. I actually felt pretty good because there were some games where, you know, they were not quite clearing my board, but they were still applying pressure, and then suddenly I just killed them out of nowhere, right? And then maybe I was down to like 5 or 6 health, and I just, if the game continued on, eventually they burst me down. But the ability to just turn my minions that they were kind of ignoring into sudden damage was pretty useful. So you can try going with that. And then the other thing you can try doing is, if weapons are a problem, you can try running like an Ooze or a Harrison in place of one of those devolves, because obviously against the aggro, killing a weapon is still going to be very useful. I find in the current meta, though, the Ooze is actually much better because the Harrison is too late.
Yeah,
by the time Harrison comes out, you're dead.
That's a very good point. I agree with you 100%. If your issue is weapons, right now it's early game weapons. By the time Harrison comes out, it's too late.
Sure, and a lot of times, you know, you might say like, well, Harrison though is still really good for Arcanite Reapers. Sometimes those Fiery War Axes are Arcanite Reapers by the time turn 4 comes around.
Yes, so, actually, that's a really good point. That happened to me the other night. Still won though. Why? I was playing Aggro Shaman.
There you go. So it's a really cool deck if you're sick of Aggro Shaman, but you still like the Shaman as a class. Then this is totally viable. Can totally work. It's a slower way to play. It's going to be more about controlling the board and playing to the board. So that's a style, you know, I think a lot of people, you're not bursting them in the face with Jade Lightnings with these decks. So give it a go if you're looking for something else. It's not Aggro Shaman that actually has a fairly good matchup against Aggro Shaman. It's actually, just the amount of healing. Of course, Thing from Below still turns out to be really, really good. So give it a go. I do believe in these decks. I think technically they're slightly worse overall than the Aggro Shaman as far as just an outright win rate, but totally viable and has at least that good matchup there. So give them a shot.
I agree. I actually really like this. But I'll be the first to say, full disclosure, it's a little bit of the Shaman hipster in me. It's just so different that I think that's part of the reason I like it. But it's a fun deck. Go try it if you haven't. Yeah. Anyways, we haven't taken one of these in a while, so let's do it. Let's move into crazy game stories.
Is the whole world gone crazy?
You're in trouble now.
You got it!
You can send your crazy game stories to tacpodcast@gmail.com, and this is actually a crazy brawl story, which comes to us from Kazin, who writes, Dear Tac Team, the Boss Battle Royale Tavern Brawl has been a blast, and I guess it comes as no surprise that some interesting combinations would come from it. Picture this. All right, I've got my picture hat on. I've been playing several Brawl games with my brother, and he's beaten me every time. I finally decide to play as the Naga Lady, and I think I have the win in the bag. A strange game ensues as he plays the chess boss, and my power changes his minions every turn. A short time later, I am at 30 health with a full board, and I've gotten him down to 1 with nothing. I could have killed him, but I wanted to see how high I could evolve my minions. Full of confidence, I hit the end turn button and watched with growing horror and astonishment as my minions evolved one last time. As it happens, one of my minions became the unlicensed apothecary, and because my evolving minions count as summoned minions, I get hit in the face for 5 damage for all of them. It was one of the most brutal accidental suicides I've experienced in Hearthstone. On the bright side, I have this great story to share with everyone. Ooh.
Oh man, that seems like that shouldn't work that way, but if it does, nerf to Evolve Shaman as well.
That hurts. That's
yeah,
painful
because
to
when
hear
you
about.
evolve, it's a 3-drop, right? That the unlicensed apothecary. So you could evolve a 2 into a 3, and then with a bunch of totems you're evolving, suddenly you're just dead. I did not know about that. Very interesting.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a 3-drop. I had to look it up because I've never played it. But
Kazan, that's what you get for BMing.
at least it was against your brother, because like if you're playing against your friend, like in the same room or something, or even not in the same room, you probably had a good laugh about that afterwards.
I think no matter what, you got to have a good laugh about that one. That's just ridiculous.
That's amazing. So. Yeah, it's one of those things. I'm not even mad. I'm impressed. Like, so thank you for sharing that with us. And now let's wrap this show up with an email or two.
Hello?
Hello, it's me.
Hello?
Just quickly, do you get my message?
Yep.
Oh.
Hello, brother.
You may send your emails to the same exact email address, tacpodcast@gmail.com. Nerdlington writes in this week and says, Hello, chickens. Really digging deep for that creative hello in their email there. Hearthstone may have earned $394 million last year, according to a data agency and not actual official Blizzard numbers. But I think we can do better. What are your best $1 million ideas for Hearthstone? Tournament mode. Just tournament mode. Sorry, Nerdlington continues. I'll start. What if Blizzard sold physical packs where each collectible card had a unique code that was also redeemable in-game for the card's digital version? I don't think that would do all that well, to be completely honest.
I mean, if you could buy an individual card, that would change everything. If you could buy a pack and it would still be randomized, then it wouldn't do anything, I don't think. Right? But let's say like let's say I needed a Tyrion still, right? And I could just buy a physical Tyrion and then I got a code to have Tyrion in game. dude, people would buy those up. For
Oh,
sure.
yeah. And he even said that. He said this would be great for collectors and completionists like myself and would have the interesting side effect of creating a secondary card market with players selling codes online. Physical cards would be sold at a premium to offset production costs and prevent anyone from taking advantage. People will take advantage no matter what, which would also have the benefit of making Blizzard obscene amount of money. Ben Brode, if you're listening, my fee is 10%. I love it.
So, physical Hearthstone cards sound like a lot of fun, but you can't actually play physical Hearthstone because of the random effects. So, to do it takes all these like extra cards. You'd have to have like a deck of random 2-drops, and then you'd, be like, okay, here's my Pilot Shredder. You kill it. Okay, which 2-drop comes out? Pick one, and then, it's this one, right? So, yeah, it just wouldn't work that well. But if they're like collectible versions that are like, kind of larger and they're just kind of to frame or something, I could see something like that. I don't think we'll ever see it, but could be kind of fun. Could be a cool way for people to fill out collections if they charge the right amount. But yeah. I think for me though, it's still got to be the pre-made decks for new players. Pre-made decks where you can't like disenchant the cards that you get and stuff like that, and then you just get this pre-made deck that's got not that many legendaries. And then here's suggested legendary replacements later on. That kind of stuff, I think, would make Blizzard a lot of money, because when players start, like I said in the past, that they are at a crossroads where they either decide to be a person who spends money or a person who never spends money. And if they could spend a little money to suddenly be competitive, they might then spend a lot more money to continue to be competitive, right? But they might decide never to spend money because they're like, I don't know how much it's going to cost to be competitive. But if it was, $20 for this deck, maybe they would.
I agree. I think that'd be good, and I think more competitive formats if you have any sort of buy-in, that's going to help a lot. It doesn't matter what it is. We've thrown out millions of suggestions, but if it's another arena, another way to play arena, tournament mode finally coming in, hell, just bringing Heroic Brawl in as it was, and just making a permanent mode, that's at least favorite there. But I will say again and reiterate, I was proven wrong on Heroic Tavern Brawl. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it. I ended up loving it. But yeah, I think.
Well, imagine if there was a way to earn Hearthstone Championship points by playing a tournament, and if you didn't have enough gold to buy in, you could buy in for $1.99. All those people who never play Arena might be like, well, I'll play this for $1.99 to try to earn some HCT points, and at the end, I'll get some packs or some dust out of it too. Man, be a lot of buy-ins. A lot of people buying in, I think.
Yeah, I've played in Grand Prix in Magic. It wasn't because I thought I was going to make it to the top. I just wanted the experience. It was a very fun experience, and I would gladly pay for that in Hearthstone, and who knows, maybe I would actually qualify for something.
And maybe one day, you go on the run of your life, right?
Yeah.
And you end up making it somewhere. So.
Yeah, but what I'm not going to do is grind the ladder, because even if I did make it, by the end of it, I'm like, oh crap, I have no tournament experience.
You have to, first of all, you have to grind the ladder for several months in a row, each month taking many, many hours of playtime.
Yep.
Nah, screw that.
Not doing it. Not doing it. But anyway, it's interesting idea, certainly, Nerdlington. And actually, chat room brings up a good point. I would be super interested in those physical cards if they were cards that have been nerfed, because the print would have the old card, and I would want a copy of that.
That'd be interesting.
That'd be fun. And they could print variants of, like, imagine all the Jade cards. You could get one where in the text the Jade is larger. Some might say a 3/3 Jade, some might say a 4/4 Jade, that kind of thing. Cool. Anywho, Dills, you want to take the final email for today?
Sure. This one comes from Pie Master, who says, "Hi, Tat Crew, nearly 200 episodes and still going strong. Good on you. Recent post on Reddit saying that Hearthstone deserved a better design team received nearly 5,000 upvotes. Subsequent survey posted on Hearthstone put this to the vote, asking the question whether Hearthstone should hire a completely new design team, and 47% of those who responded said yes. That is 47% of what we define as the community feel that the current Hearthstone design team should be fired from the game that they themselves created from nothing and turned into one of the most successful video games in the world, and presumably the people voting in the poll chose to play from the millions of games available, and replaced with a completely new team. My question is this: in light of the above, why should we, let alone Blizzard, ever listen to what this community thinks? These are the people we allow to define what the big issues are and shape the dialogue between Blizzard and the customers, yet they seemingly have absolutely no clue what constitutes a rational business decision. Love to hear your opinions, as always."
Boy,
I mean, obviously, 47% of people are completely friggin' wrong. That there's no way firing the entire team and hiring a all new team would at all be beneficial to Hearthstone at all.
This is, without a doubt, the single stupidest thing I have ever heard come out of Reddit or the forums or some. And this wasn't Hearthpwn, by the way, doing the poll. It was just a poll put up by a user on Hearthpwn. Because I was like, wait a minute, I missed this? Wait, what? I'm like about to type a letter to my buddies over at Hearthphone. Like, what are you doing? But it was just a user.
They used the poll feature to put this up. Just some guy.
I'm sorry, but if you truly believe this is like what's best for the game, you're the stupidest person I've ever talked to. You're a moron of levels I find unquantifiable using words in the English language. Like, because what are you saying, sir or madam out there? Like, oh, this game deserves a better design team. We should fire everyone who has built this game. This game, the game I'm currently invested in enough to make a post in the subreddit of. We should fire everyone who had any hand in building this product and give it to someone new. What is wrong with you? Like, how do you come to terms with that? Because my retort is, well, do you like Hearthstone? And if your answer is yes, what? Why would you want something that you love? Clearly there's something that pulled you in. Why would you want to remove everyone that had any hand in that? And if the answer is no, it's a free market. I can think of 5 similar quality digital card games you can go and play right now. There's the door.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I do think that people aren't wrong for complaining about the game or offering their support for some changes or giving some suggestions on why they think this card might need a little bit of a change or a tweak, or this card might need a tweak. But suggesting that just getting rid of everybody is somehow some logical answer to this is like, you're right. Like, that's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Now, you could say that maybe, Hearthstone's design team would do better having more people and more ideas to bounce off of each other and all that. You could suggest that. That's a completely different suggestion. Just saying, like, hey, I understand there's a lot of work to do and it's a lot of stuff, and maybe if you just had some more people, that might be helpful. That would be like a totally normal, fine suggestion. But suggesting that the entire friggin' team needs to go just does not even make sense. Even like you said, this, you must be the stupidest person. I can't even understand what that mentality must be like. Like, how do you function in life if you think, like, when something's wrong, we should probably just dump the entire...
Just everything. Just fire sale that shit. Just hit the button, nuke it. No, that just doesn't make sense. And in this original poster's defense, at the end, they did make an edit saying, sorry, this kind of didn't expect this many upvotes, and I wrote this frantically. So
it was probably
at
just
least
one of those
they quantified it like that. And
moments,
I'm not even
right?
like extremely mad at the poster here, because we've all done this. I'm sure someone has listened to me over a couple too many whiskeys at the bar after BlizzCon go on and on about how Arena is the most squandered thing in the history of games, because I think it could be so much better. But what I didn't do is write that down and then post it. What I'm really mad at is, like, how many people upvoted this and how many people
read that and we're like, yeah,
voted,
that makes sense.
voted yes. Like, that's insane to me if you truly believe that. Which I don't. I think a lot of people are just being,
It's
internet.
It's them being hyperbolic, right?
Yeah.
To the and they just want something to change so bad that they will vote for the most nuclear of options, right?
Right.
Because they just want something to change. And obviously, changing things. Here's the other thing I'll say, and we don't get political on this show, but America is built on every 4 years kind of throwing everything out and starting fresh again, right?
Yes,
so
and
I understand that mentality doesn't seem that weird to people in America, because
especially right now.
Yeah, it's just kind of what we do, right?
Especially right now. But
in things like gaming, this is not the proper thing. When you built a game, you understand the ins and outs of it. You just got to understand that there will be growing pains from time to time. And the other thing too is the Hearthstone people built a fantastic game, and then now have to kind of deal with the future of this game, where a lot of the team that was there to build it were great at building it, and now it's like, okay, now we have to like maintain a card game, right? And Wizards of the Coast went through plenty of times where they made mistakes with Magic, and now 20 years later, they're really good at it, right? And they understand what they're doing because that's 20 years of experience behind it. Hearthstone is still very, very new, so give them a little bit of time to understand, like, oh, that didn't quite work so well. Let's move into this direction, and I think we'll see that as the game continues to age, it will age very gracefully, and I think we'll start to see that the design philosophies that they have are sound. It's just really difficult to implement them perfectly every single time. So as long as they're still willing to understand that changes need to be made here and there when it makes sense, you let them do their thing, and here's how you vote for change. Put the game down for a while. Come back when you're not so frustrated that you think that everybody should be fired, right? That's how you will vote for change. Voting on Reddit for the entire team to get fired, I guarantee you, will not be taken seriously by anybody. So,
No.
But if you stop buying packs, maybe they'll be like, okay, pack purchases are slowing down. Let's maybe look at what we're doing and see if there's any way to do it better, right?
Yeah, and that's also not to, and again, I want to hammer this point home, that I agree with that 100%. That is also not to say that, like, that there's a one-to-one correlation. The designers actually making the game are not the people making financial decisions about the game.
True. But it all kind of, everything kind of has a hand in each other's. Like, people who are designing the game understand that, like, the esports team, what they do, it affects them. People on the esports team understand that, the game design people are affected by their decisions that they make. And, and the people making financial decisions understand that if the game itself isn't good, it doesn't matter how good they are at marketing said game, right?
Yeah.
Or coming up with the proper price points. People aren't going to buy what you're selling, right? So, everybody understands that they all are in a symbiotic relationship with each other. But the bottom line is, be productive when you're giving feedback. Try to be as positive as you can while still giving realistic feedback. And you might actually get listened to. And then, of course, the ultimate feedback anybody can give is whether or not they think a game is worth their time and money. So
Yeah.
just understand that, and let's not be assholes on the internet anymore.
This is also not, this post is a month old, so this would have come in, I think, before.
It was at the beginning and maybe the apex of, like, when everybody was freaking losing their minds. However, a month later, I still go onto our Hearthstone subreddit, and it feels like not a lot has changed over there either. They need to switch that meta, that our Hearthstone subreddit.
Yeah, no, and it hasn't, right? Like, hyperbole gets upvotes, hyperbole gets views. I mean, we love Crip here. We love Crip, and I agree with a lot of his points. But one of his most recent videos is like why ranked play is awful, and I agree with, like, all of his points in the video. But, like, there's a reason he titles it that way.
Yeah. And there's been a lot of really interesting posts by some of these pros that have been very, what I would call, productive and constructive feedback. There was recently Hotform, who made a whole video where he showcased a single game that he played against Shaman. And he said, look, I had a winning session at the end of this. He goes, I had a winning session. I was teching against this deck. But let me show you this game where my opponent misplayed terribly and I played a Reno, and my opponent was still able to do 59 damage to me. By misplaying and playing this terrible deck, or playing this, OP deck terribly, and, like, why that's a problem. It's not necessarily a problem because I can't beat it. It's a problem because this game here probably should never have happened, right? So that's the type of, like, productive feedback you could be giving, and I hope that's what we're doing here, and I hope that everybody who listens to this show is on board with that. And let's just stop doing this kind of stuff, Reddit. Like, let's not vote for the entire team to get fired, because it's the dumbest thing ever. It is
really is. Like, if you care that much, I don't know why you would want every single person that had a hand in making something you love scrubbed from it.
Mm-hmm.
Like I get it a little bit, right? Like, listen, I'm a Star Wars fan. We haven't had a Star Wars reference all show. Give me this, listeners. I'm a Star Wars fan. I get it. I get wanting someone else to take the reins and run with it for a little
I get
while.
wanting George Lucas out.
Yeah, like maybe hey George, hand this to someone else. And I would argue it was proven even before The Force Awakens, which, again, it's opinion. Some people like it, some people don't. Kyle, for example, loves to argue with me that Force Awakens wasn't that good. But I think it was proven before that when they were doing the animated series Clone Wars. Like, George was still involved, but someone else predominantly was carrying the load there. Like, I completely understand it, but, like, to have just get rid of everything. That's just insane to me. And then,
or to hate George Lucas. That's what I didn't get either. Let's if we're gonna get into it, like to hate George Lucas, like you don't have Star Wars without him in the first damn place.
Yep.
So don't hate him.
What's
just
wrong with
understand that maybe it's his time is up. Right. That's it.
Yep.
You know. Like maybe somebody on Team 5 needs to take a back seat and let somebody else's ideas come forward. That could be true. I don't know. I'm not a fly on the wall in their meetings about balance, right?
No.
And maybe somebody's responsible for things not quite being perfect. I don't know who that is. It's not my place to say it, but that could be true.
And please
but there's
don't.
no damn way that the entirety of their balance team is the problem and needs to go. That is, I will guarantee you, 100% impossible.
And don't skew my words. And I'm not making an analogy that Brode is Lucas in this scenario and should be removed. No. That is not it. I'm sure I'll get feedback saying you're a fanboy, you're in Blizzard's pocket, whatever you're trying to whatever. This is how I feel. I am thankful that Ben Brode is in the position that he is because of threads like this. There are few other human beings I have met in my life that I think are actually equipped to see this kind of stuff and continue to do a good job. Because if I was in Ben's position, I would do what I just did 10 minutes ago and yell at you that you're all a bunch of morons. So there's that.
But Ben continues to talk to us as if we're human beings
Yes.
with nuanced opinions and feelings. So.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I'm guilty of this too. I know I've said hyperbolic things on this show before, but this one particularly, man, this just got my goat.
Yeah, I know, right?
Anywho, we're actually running a little short, so I will take one more email. This one comes from Andrew, who says, well met from Liverpool, UK, home of the Beatles. That's cool. I am a trainee computer science teacher at high school in Blightly. I often talk to the kids about gaming, and they are always shocked to learn I know about Twitch. They think is a secret world of gaming adults do not understand. I can understand that. My question: we often have to remind ourselves that this is a kids' card game. I disagree. However, no. Kids I teach across any of the year groups play Wizard Poker, and are actually much more interested in Overwatch, Counter-Strike, or Clash of Clans. Do you think children actually account for the majority of the player base? No, I completely disagree with that statement. If not, it begs the question, why can't Team 5 budge ever so slightly on their uber simplified approach to UI and gameplay mode? Having said this, I understand the Blizzard ethos of making their games accessible to all. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Okay, so this is on the flip side of things. So with the previous email where I'm just like, you're a bunch of morons, I completely disagree with you. Andrew obviously is critiquing, I think, Team 5 here, and I do agree to a certain degree. You know me, Dills. I'm a big art nerd. I'm a big user interface nerd. I get into that kind of stuff. When I see user interface updates in Heroes of the Storm patch notes, I get excited. Hearthstone is, and we've said this many times, right? It's beautiful in its simplicity. I think you were out over a year ago when we had Ben Thompson on, the art director.
Yeah, when you had he's the art director or
he's the art director for Hearthstone, and he brought with him concept art for user interface designs of Hearthstone that never came to be, and they were wildly fascinating, and any of them could have worked. And what's cool, what we landed on, and what a lot of people don't think about, is this whole tactile sensation you get when you navigate Hearthstone menus. Like, it looks like a box. It looks like a Jumanji box. Like, it opens. It looks like an actual collection.
When you push buttons, it feels like the button got pushed. Yes. Like there was actually activity that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a physicality to all of it. And that makes it, I think that goes a lot further than most people, I think, will admit, to endearing Hearthstone to newcomers. Like, it's just this first time you see it, you're just like, oh my goodness, this is cool. Look at, just even navigating the damn menu is very well polished.
Like playing a card too. I mean, you grab it and you can kind of put it wherever, you can move it around, then it feels like you drop it and it suddenly turns into this minion that hits a game board, right?
Yep.
And then you're like looking into this arena where your little dudes are and you're telling them where to go. Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's magical. And that is something I think should be preserved to a certain degree. I think we've reached a point where it's been preserved a little too much. And I will say that. I think we could get a little more intricate with the UI in Hearthstone. So
it's weird, though, because Andrew's email here kind of says, okay, so it's a kids game, which I disagree with. I do think more adults are playing this game than kids. I would guess, although probably there are a lot of kids playing it as well. I think it can appeal to anybody of any age, right? But he's kind of arguing that, so if it's for children, is this why Team 5 is making the UI so simple? And I don't think the UI being simple has anything to do with children at all. I think it just has to do with what you said, which is when somebody touches it for the first time, does everything feel good and make sense right away? And I think you're right. I think they can preserve that feeling without going overboard on, there should only be 9 deck slots and all that kind of stuff that they've kind of held on to for longer than they probably should have, right?
Yeah.
Or there's only a few buttons to press on the main area, and then once you press those, only a few buttons. Because there are some places, like when you get into solo adventure, there's a lot of stuff going on that right-hand side.
And that wasn't always the case, remember? There was a time where you went in and that was just to play against AI.
Sure.
And then adventures came, and
it feels okay now to have areas where there's lots of stuff going on, as long as you still get that feel of it being a box that you're opening and you're getting into and you're going deeper into this magical box.
You're sliding out drawers.
I think you can keep that feel while adding more complexity, for sure.
Yeah. No,
it's difficult. I imagine, because I'm not an expert on this stuff. You know much more about UI design than I do, but I'm sure that it's difficult, but I'm also sure that it's possible.
Right. And we've talked, I think, to a great length already on the show that we just assume at this point that it is harder to make these types of changes to the game than anyone might actually think. So to go back to the previous email the email about a Reddit post that set me into a bloody murderous rage, maybe a different way to put that opinion, which I think is still radical, but I think we can actually have a discussion about, is there an argument to have Hearthstone's client rebuilt from the ground up? That's drastic, that's radical, but at least we can have a discussion there that I think is sane.
And also, I don't think you throw out the original team to do it.
God, so. No, I would absolutely want them, because if anyone's learned lessons from building Hearthstone 1.0, it's the folks currently employed at Team 5. It's not going to be, let's get a bunch of people from the Magic the Gathering online team. No, please don't. Keep them as far away from Hearthstone as humanly possible. Thank you.
Yeah. I'll say this, though. It's definitely worth going and checking out some of these other card games that are coming out, like Eternal and Hex and
Shadowverse,
Shadowverse and Faria and all this stuff. Like, go check those games out, because they are making some cool UI decisions themselves. It's important that Hearthstone still feels like Hearthstone, though. Like, they all need their identity, and then they need to hold on to that, right? But there's many different ways to do this kind of cool thing, and I'm noticing a lot of people are emulating a lot of what Hearthstone is doing. So obviously they're doing something very right. And that being said, like, they need to keep that feel of that opening that box, going deeper and deeper, and the play feeling very tactile and all of that kind of stuff. They definitely need to keep that feel. That being said, there's plenty of room for changes and improvements to be made, and I hope that they do over time make some of those. Andrew, I think it has nothing to do with kids. And I love the Beatles, so hello to Liverpool.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for your emails. Even Pie Master, who got me a little worked up, but I think it was something that needed to be talked about. Again, you can send your emails to tacpodcast@gmail.com, and that is going to do it for this episode. Thank you again to everyone supporting us at Patreon. Our patrons, you guys are awesome. You are badasses. If you would like to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/TAC. There's all kind of perks over there for becoming patrons. So go and check that out. Thank you to our Patreon producers, Declan H. and Peter Williams. You can find way more about the Angry Chicken and many other podcasts over at amove.tv. The entire back catalog is over there, for example. You can follow us on Twitter at TAC Podcast. You can catch us live Tuesday nights at 4 p.m. Eastern. Would you really call that night, though? I don't know. Tuesday afternoon at 4 p.m. Eastern Time on twitch.tv/amovetv or on alphageekmedia.com. BrianGriffithMusic.com is responsible for our quite awesome, and I'm still rather fond of it, intro and outro music, so go check him out if you need music for any project. But Dills, where can folks find your work?
Check me out on Twitter at Willie Dills, and the Twitch stream is twitch.tv/WillieDillsSF. I can also check out the Instance and the new podcast with Justin Robert Young, 1-900 Wrestling, which is available on iTunes.
Very cool. Folks, you can find me on Twitter at Garrett Art. Everything is at emove.tv that I do. If I'm going to pimp something specific, I have a new episode of my solo show, The Angry Nerd, out, where if you're into cars, I spent way more time talking about cars than I thought I was going to. So you can go check that out. And other than that, that's all there is to it. Don't forget to go check out our sponsors, .game domains. Get your .game domain over at get.game. We thank them for their support. We thank you all for listening. We hope Jocelyn gets better. Make sure you follow her at Joss Plays on Twitter and check out the Gamers Inn Wednesday nights right here on amove.tv. But until next time, job's done.
Job's done. Yes!
Yeah!